So I'll call forward Elder Mike Mitchell for a presentation of the Eagle Feather. The Iroquois Water Drum youth, please come forward, representing East with the water drum.
So, close to 40 years ago in Akwesasne, we started our own school. A school that taught our culture, language, ceremony. I'm glad to tell you it still exists. They started this school without any government funding. The parents had to support it. And now, many years later, the community, school board, everybody has found pride in having our own Akwesasne Freedom School. I brought these kids with me because I want you to hear them. This is the future, and we're talking about our own indigenous languages, that it never disappears from our lands and territories. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Akwesasne lunda tatuanio jiundeo yastakwa nua gadeo yastana, tanogaeli wala nadogo siago. Ogatsanuni giganto igits.
Segozo guego don his latte gets wagetnesio, dignio wala nadogo sliago, dano Akwesasne lunda doanio jiundeo yastakwa nua gadeo yasta dano o his lande ayangodulna tase.
Everyone hear that?
Yeah.
At this time, we're going to proceed to the side table, and Elder Mike Mitchell will read out the oath of office, which will then be hopefully agreed to by the newly re-elected National Chief, and then signed.
Oath of office for a National Chief. Hear me, elders, chiefs, citizens of First Nations, as well as friends and guests here assembled. In your sight, in your hearing, I,
Perry Bellegarde,
take up the duties of National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Solemnly swear to sincerely pledge to fulfill these duties as they are outlined in the Charter, best of your abilities. Finish the rest.
I solemnly promise and sincerely pledge to place the needs of our Assembly above my own comfort. I solemnly promise and sincerely pledge to watch for all dangers and to give you warning. I solemnly promise and sincerely pledge to watch for opportunities to strengthen our peoples and to aid all such efforts. Elders, chiefs, and citizens of the First Nations, as well as friends and guests here assembled, you have heard my promises made without equivocation. I will ever call on the Great Spirit for wisdom and in help in carrying them out.
Negi jina hoda waharu, wahari wa nilo de. Sunun da hata de, wahara chinyore ne sabaya disu. Disu wagana ragwego. Jina hoda gaidan saraya, neo hoyota, I ngwada ge natsara. Nega digiga ke holosagane hawa hawa na nodu. Wagare, I ngwana agatse, eto dekra, jina hoda gayad. Say it in Cree now.
Nyalgoa.
So while they're signing, I'm going to call forward the Saskatchewan drum to do a song representing the South.
They were shaking us in my hand.
At this time, in honor of where we are today in the unceded territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh, It is my honor to call upon Musqueam Elder Thelma Stogan to do a cedar cleansing of our newly re-elected National Chief. So at this time, he'll be, we'll have the blanketing and the new moccasins, followed by the looks like it's a Squamish family of drummers. Thank you so much, Joshua. Joseph has found some relatives and members of his community to join him. The Squamish Nation Singers will be singing a song after the presentation of the blanket. Join me in welcoming to the podium the newly re-elected National Chief, Perry Bellegarde.
Ista kakeo nuako magnak. Nista kinanaskum tinawao. No tauinan semanito kinanaskumtin. My friends and relatives, thanking you all, kinanaskum tinawao, acknowledging Creator, kind, loving God, no tauinan, give thanks. As well, we give thanks to these people back here. I want to acknowledge and give thanks, of course, first and foremost, to the Creator. But we can't do anything as individuals without a good team. And I want to lift up and thank my nominator and seconder for their confidence and trust, Chief Patricia, Chief Cookby Ron, for standing with me. They're a strong team. I just want to applaud them. I also want to thank a person that has won many, many things in her life. And we say that old saying, behind every man there's a good woman, but that's an old saying. I don't think my partner Val would ever say that. And I want to bring her here because this is the lady. She's from the Nipissing First Nation. And her writing and her style and her strategy, that closing the gap document that I always refer to, she wrote it. So I want to thank her for her work and the support and for her comradeship and her partnership. I also want to, the team, I have to do, everybody in the blue, please come up here, everybody. Please, this is my team. This is my team. Jed, Tiffany, all of the guys and girls, everybody, come on up. My brothers, come up. Brian, Dean, these are my brothers from Little Black Bear from the east side of the creek. I don't know where Chucky is. This is the team. And we can't do this alone. And so I want to acknowledge my team, my partner, my mover, my seconder, all the people, my relatives, because you can't do this alone. And I really want to thank them and offer my hands up in a good way, in a respectful way, for their love, their support, and their encouragement. And I want them up here standing with me. At this time, as well, to acknowledge my friends and relatives that let their names stand as well. To Grand Chief Sheila North, thank you for putting your name forward. Thank you, and your mom, I met your mom, she's a beautiful lady. To Catherine Whitecloud, strong Dakota woman, very, very strong on tradition and language and kinship. To Russell, my relative as well. He's married a lady from Muscapeding First Nation, so he's kind of like a relative. I thank him as well, because we learn. And to Miles Richardson, for his words and his strength and his wisdom, and for really saying what we have to do when these things are finished now, is to bring back our circle in unity, in strength, and to keep working together to make a difference for our children, our grandchildren, and those yet unborn. So Miles, I want to thank you very much for your campaign and your team. To these very special young ones, how we started this ceremony, the Ongohoe, the Horonasoni, that water drum and those beautiful songs. Sinyawango, I always say, Sego, Skanago. That's so important. And that message from the little ones, the young ones that spoke. What a powerful message that our language is still here, that our language is still alive, and that it's these little ones that are going to carry it into the future for us. And that's providing hope that we're moving beyond the residential school system. And our languages and our culture and our ways of being are still here. I say, Nyagawa. And then as we move across this great Turtle Island, we see the diversity of our peoples. So I want to lift up as well the Plains and my relatives that sang that beautiful chief song, that prayer song. Marshall and the guys from Whitefish, Big River, where they are. They're in the back. But I want to thank them for that. And of course, our hosts here, the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh Squamish, for that beautiful song and their prayers. You know, and the elders for what they did. All that you saw up here, the smudging, the cleansing, the getting ready, because we have work to do. And I want to lift them and thank them up for that smudging, the cedar, all those sacred medicines that were used. I thank them for that beautiful song. And I want to lift them up and say, Haichka, how we say that here, I believe. So I want to lift them up and say thank you as well. We still have the Renaissance Linné yet, that's coming. But I said this before, and I'm really happy to see this diversity of indigenous nations and tribes. Right across coast to coast to coast, we see that diversity. And we've said this before, there's one thing that binds our people. There's one thing. No matter if you're Mi'kmaq, Maliseet, Ungwahoe Haudenosaunee, Nehewak peoples, Anishinaabe people, Algonquin peoples, it's that drum. And you saw that drum bring our people together, and that spirit of that drum is going to take us into that future, Otini, Gan. And so I really want to thank the singers for doing what they've done. And it's that diversity is to show that respect. And I really wanted to see that, and you can feel that cleansing energy from that spirit of that drum. And that's what's going to keep our people united going into the future. And now, I have to say a few words about our AFN team, because even now we have work to do tomorrow. We have work to do. This part is done. So I want to acknowledge our CEO for the Assembly of First Nations, Dr. Paulette Tremblay from the Six Nations. Dr. Paulette Tremblay, thank you for the staff and the team that you've done so far. You do a great job, always. And so now, chiefs and friends and relatives, citizens of all our nations and tribes, this part is done now. We have work to do. To my colleagues on the executive, all the 10 regional chiefs, I acknowledge you and lift you up, because we have work to do together. Just one person here can't do anything alone. So we need your strength. I see some of them here, Chief Hart, Chief Tiji, all the chiefs that are here on the executive. I thank them and acknowledge them. This is a humbling experience. It's a great experience. And why we let ourselves serve, it's public service. And no matter what level we are at, no matter where we are, whether it's on council at the reserve, or the tribal council, or treaty areas, or PTOs, or national organizations, I've said this before, that we're trying to make a difference for our people. And as a leader, or as a person, or a helper, or a servant, that's all we are. We might have these terms or these names like chiefs or grand chiefs, but if you're taught by the elders, we are servants and helpers of the people. And so we keep that in mind here on this date, in these lands. The only points I want to say now, because you've been sitting a long time, there's these two things I'll say will always guide us. It's this worldview, our worldview as Indigenous peoples. That's a very important piece. But in my travels across Canada, seeking this position, listening to elders and youth and chiefs and councils in every community and territory, there's one thing that kept coming up. There's one thing that always kept recurring, a discussion and dialogue about this thing. And this thing was, how do we now, as Indigenous peoples, First Nations peoples, move beyond these two things that have created havoc in our lives? How do we move beyond the genocide of that residential school system now? How do we move beyond that? And how do we move beyond the colonization of that Indian Act and exert ourselves as nations? And last year when we talked about this thing called Canada's 150, everywhere we went, Indigenous people said, why are we celebrating as Indigenous peoples? And we say it this way, we're not celebrating, but we're going to participate. Because they've said it this way, that after all those things, that genocide of that residential school, that termination of our beautiful languages and cutting of our long hair and everything made to feel bad, we're still here as First Nations people, and we're proud, and our languages are getting stronger, and our ceremonies are getting stronger. And it's the next 150 years that chapter about Canada's history will be written. And when I see our young people hanging on to their language in their ceremonies, there's bright hope for that next 150 years. There's bright light when our little ones are going to pick up that torch and move forward. And that's what I see in this last tour here in Canada, about moving beyond the next 150 years to build a better country for all of us. And this gap will be closed. This gap will be closed. Better housing, better education, better health care, and yes, lands and resources coming back to First Nations people, because we know it's assumed Crown sovereignty. We know it's assumed Crown jurisdiction, and we're going to get that back in our rightful place in this land. That's what I see. That's my vision, that's my hope, and we need to work together to do that. My last point, friends and relatives. If we can adopt our Indigenous worldview locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, we'll create a better world and a better society. And what I'm going to talk about is this. We are the two-leggeds. And I always say this, and elders will say, what do you mean? We don't see color in a way. Black people, white people, red people, yellow people. We're the two-leggeds. And when we go to ceremony, our old people always advise us and caution us to show respect for the Creator, the main one. But we also take time to acknowledge the one that sits in the east, in the south, in the west, in the north. We take time to acknowledge all we get from Mother Earth. She sustains us. We acknowledge Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, Grandfather Sun. We acknowledge our relatives, the star people. We acknowledge the male plants, the female plants. And we acknowledge our relatives, the four-legged ones. The ones that fly, the ones that swim, the ones that crawl. We're part of that as a family. But most important, there are four grandmothers that look after the waters. The rainwater, the salt water, the fresh water. And when life comes, water breaks. That's the four grandmothers. So if that worldview can be adopted, we'll always find a balance between the economy and the environment. We'll always find that balance to protect the land and the waters. We'll always find that to build a better country and a better world, because we're the two-leggeds. And we all need clean air and clean water. And we need to keep remembering that worldview. And as we go forward now, as our Assembly of First Nations, let that worldview guide us. Let that worldview resonate not only here in Canada but throughout the world, because our elders have so much to offer this world. And so now, my friends, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you in a very big way for the trust and confidence for another term. We have work to do. Let's keep our circle strong and make our AFN the best it can be in this country for the sake of our children, those yet unborn. Egose, kanaskom tinawao. Hi, hi.
To complete the four directions, I call forward the Denny drummers to represent the North.